The blast lit the horizon, visible for 15 kilometers. A tower of black smoke climbed 100 meters into the sky. 660,000 liters of fuel vanished in seconds. But what set this apart from every other strike wasn't the size of the blast. It was the distance. This Russian fuel train sat 35 kilometers behind enemy lines, shielded by defenses that should have made it untouchable. 4 Ukrainian pilots were about to prove that nowhere is safe anymore. Armed only with drones cheaper than a gaming laptop, 35 kilometers away, operators from Ukraine's elite Ronin unit stared at flickering analog video feeds that shouldn't have worked at that range. 4 FPV quadcopters pushed beyond every published limit. Conventional drones die at 3 kilometers. They were already 15 and climbing. Behind them, Cobble 9 intelligence streamed real-time data, while Alpha Unit monitored Russian communications. The next group stood ready with counter-jamming equipment, electronic shields designed to carve holes through the electromagnetic fog when needed. Then, suddenly, static. The operator's screen dissolved into noise. The link was dead. A Russian Verba man-portable missile had struck the first repeater drone, the critical relay hovering at 500 meters. Without it, the entire mission collapsed. Every drone was now flying blind. This is the risk of extreme-range warfare. Ukrainian teams rely on analog 5.88 GHz video because it has zero latency. Digital feeds are easier to boost, but their 200 millisecond delay makes precision strikes impossible. At 80 kilometers an hour, that lag means missing by 5 meters, so Ukraine is stuck with analog, fast but fragile, using repeater drones every 5 kilometers as lifelines. The Ronin operator waited 3 seconds, 5 seconds, then the backup repeater came online. Flying lower at 200 meters, it was harder for Russian sensors to hit, but less effective. Signal strength dropped to 60%. The video turned grainy, but it worked. The chain was alive again, stretching toward the Russian train loaded with diesel and aviation fuel. This wasn't a solo mission. 4 specialized groups moved as one machine. Cobble 9, Ukraine's defense intelligence, had tracked the train for weeks, mapping its routes and timing. Alpha Unit handled electronic overwatch, intercepting Russian chatter. Next group managed counter-EW systems, and Ronin flew the attack drones. Every link mattered. Ukraine always deploys 3 repeaters per chain, 1 main and 2 backups, flying at different altitudes. 500 meters for range, 200 for stealth, and 100 for survival. Each sits 2 kilometers apart, so a single missile can't take out more than 1. Ronin pilots train for this exact chaos, 200 simulator hours learning to navigate blind. When the feed drops, they rely on timing and terrain memory. Follow the tracks for 15 seconds, bank right, climb over power lines, count 10, level out. Mantras become lifelines when technology fails. The Russians knew something was coming. They always do. The question was whether their walls could stop it. In the distance, the fuel train rolled at 40 kilometers per hour, unaware that 4 drones were closing in. The lead drone was 20 kilometers out. What happened next would decide if Ukraine's gamble would pay off or vanish in Russian airspace. At 25 kilometers, the lead drone entered an electromagnetic storm. The feed didn't degrade, it disintegrated. Static, black screen. The drone had flown into the reach of Russia's R-330 Zhetel electronic warfare system, a truck-mounted jammer that floods frequencies from 100 to 2000 megahertz, creating a 15-kilometer bubble where no signal survives. But theory rarely matches the battlefield. The Ukrainian operator began frequency hopping, 40 channels per second, searching for tiny gaps in the Russian jamming field. The Zhetel couldn't cover every frequency at once. There were milliseconds of silence, small, shifting cracks, and Ronin had mapped them from previous missions. Russian jammers focus on common FPV bands, 5.8, 2.4, and 1.2 GHz, but there are blind spots. Ronin's drones danced across the spectrum. 3 hops on common bands to confuse the enemy, then a quick jump to a gap frequency for 2 seconds of clarity, then back to chaos. For 15 agonizing seconds, the drone flew blind. GPS was spoofed, showing false coordinates 10 kilometers off. Even satellite signals were being faked. But Ukrainian pilots had trained for this, counting seconds, tracking the sun's angle, navigating by instinct when every tool failed. Behind the lead drone, 3 more followed, spaced exactly 30 seconds apart. Too close, and jamming would swallow them all. Too far, and they'd lose the leader's frequency path. 30 seconds gave each drone time to follow the breakthrough trail before the Russians could adapt. The second drone copied every frequency hop in perfect sync. Then came the signal Ukraine needed. The next group activated its counter-EW array, an electronic battering ram. For 30 seconds, a beam of raw power burned a corridor through the jamming field. It made their position visible to every Russian radar within miles, but it was a calculated risk. Ukrainian intelligence knew Russian artillery took 45 seconds to respond. 30 seconds of exposure was survivable, and enough to push the drones through 10 kilometers of jammed airspace. At 28 seconds, the transmission cut. Operators relocated instantly. The gamble worked. The video feed returned, distorted but usable. The operator saw steel rails flashing below. The perfect navigation aid no jamming could hide. But Zhitel was just the first wall. Russia had more. Operators switched to full manual mode. No GPS, no autopilot, just vision and reflex. The train was 10 kilometers away, and Russian defenses were fully awake. The Krasuka 4 system picked up the drones next. Its sensors could detect control signals 150 kilometers away. It relayed data to a Pantsir S-1 air defense battery, which locked onto the lead drone. 8 seconds to intercept. The Ukrainians had planned for this too. 6 new contacts suddenly appeared on Russian radar. Decoy drones, each costing barely $200, but equipped with corner reflectors that made them look massive. The Pantsir's computer couldn't tell fake from real. Engage them all and waste missiles, or hesitate and let real threats through. The operator chose to fire. 8 missiles roared skyward. 4 decoys malfunctioned, but it didn't matter. The Pantsir wasted 2/3 of its arsenal on metal scraps and plastic. Only 4 missiles remained, with a 20-minute reload cycle. Its cannons still worked, but they had a fatal flaw. The attack drones dropped 10 meters high, hugging the ground. The Pantsir's radar couldn't lock onto anything that low. It confused the targets with ground clutter. The drones were skimming the grass, dodging obstacles at 80 kilometers per hour. Power lines flashed past every few hundred meters, nearly invisible through the static. Trees and even birds became lethal threats. Ronin pilots had memorized every inch of the route. Power lines at kilometer 27. Radio tower at 29. Executed by memory, not sight. Meanwhile, the Krasuka 4 tracked the analog signals but couldn't jam them. Analog fades. It doesn't die. Even with 80% interference, you still see something. Digital would have gone black. 4 kilometers away, the train finally received a warning. The engineer pushed the throttle, whistled, and the cars began to accelerate. A moving target at 40 kilometers per hour slashes the probability to 30%. But it was too late. Through the flickering feed, the operator could see the exhaust smoke. The train was moving, but not fast enough. 3 kilometers, 2 minutes to impact. Then the train's own Pole 21 jammer powered on, a mobile system designed to fry navigation signals. GPS vanished instantly. GLONASS failed. Even the magnetic compass spun. But the analog video held, blurry, static, distorted, but still there. Drivers followed tracks like a road painted through chaos, counting cars by static. 7, 6, 5. The third car behind the locomotive carried the most fuel. That was the target. At 500 meters, the feed began collapsing completely. The Pole 21 was winning. The drone was blind, but instinct took over. 3 seconds. 2, 1. 4:32 a.m. Impact. The first drone hit the lead fuel tanker dead center. The RPG-7 warhead's shaped charge tore through the steel shell, igniting 60,000 liters of diesel. The explosion produced a massive fireball and a shockwave visible at the horizon. The shockwave slammed into the next cars, locking the train's brakes. 30 seconds later, the second drone arrived. Smoke blanketed the sky, but the pilot counted tracks and time. He aimed for the fourth car. Impact, another eruption. Fire spread like a chain reaction. The third drone plunged through the smoke, thermal cameras blind from heat. The pilot flew on memory, guided by rhythm, kilometer after kilometer, until a flash of metal appeared through the static. Impact. Direct hit on the seventh car. The fourth drone flew into an inferno. Flames towered 100 meters high. One intact tanker remained at the rear. If left untouched, Russia could still salvage thousands of liters. The operator dove straight into the black, counting down 3, 2, 1. At 4:33 a.m., the final strike hit home. The last tanker erupted. 11 cars burned. 660,000 liters of fuel turned into fire. For 6 hours, the blaze raged. Steel rails twisted like ribbons. Concrete ties shattered. The vital supply line was destroyed for at least 72 hours. 4 drones, total cost of $12,000, had wiped out $3 million of fuel and infrastructure. But the real impact was psychological. They'd proven that even deep behind the front, nothing was untouchable. The age of safe logistics for Russia was over. If Ukrainian drones can hit 35 kilometers today, commanders know what comes next. 50 tomorrow, 100 next week. No train, no depot, no bridge is beyond reach. Ukraine's drone war has just rewritten the rulebook.